Mississippi.
From the Foundation Studio right here on Biloxi's Back Bay, where incidentally the speckled trout, redfish, and black drum bite is on fire. I want to say good afternoon and welcome to SuperTalk Outdoors, where we come to you every single Monday at lunchtime to celebrate the world-class outdoors of the state of Mississippi here on the powerful SuperTalk Mississippi radio network. But some of you are listening or watching the show on SuperTalk TV at C Spire TV, or you might be watching it on YouTube or Facebook or on your favorite podcast. So with that said, it's December the 5th, 2022. Thanks for joining me today. You might be an avid hunter. It's that time of year in Mississippi. And at this moment, you may be actually riding along in your truck, going to or from one of the 50 wildlife management areas in this great state. Man, does this state have a lot of great public hunting options, from Hell Creek Wildlife Management Area in North Mississippi near New Albany, all the way down to places like Ward Bayou near Moss Point in southeast Mississippi, and all these points in between. So many diverse public hunting opportunities to enjoy in this state. You might be driving down the road looking across one of the vast ag lands here in Mississippi and wondering to yourself as you look toward the timberline, is there a monster buck in there? Or you might be passing some standing water, looking closely to see if there are any ducks in there. Keep your eyes on the road. I know the drill. I've been there. It's that time of year. That's me in that truck doing that. You might be driving down to Beach Boulevard and places like Pasquotank and looking across at Cat Island and wishing you were there catching redfish with osprey and ducks flying overhead. What a beautiful thought that is. It's real too. It's actually happening now. Or passing one of the many public fishing piers along the coast of Mississippi and wishing you were there. Again, I know the drill. I've been there many times. That is definitely me. But a lot of you are at work, unfortunately. I get a lot of notes from people who enjoy the show, and some of you write me notes and let me know that you're working in factories. You gather around the radio at lunchtime and celebrate Mississippi's outdoors with me, learning from our guests. And man, do our guests have a lot to teach us. I really appreciate the notes. Some of you work on farms. Some are policemen and firemen. You work in retail stores. Some of you are doctors and lawyers. Some of you are retired. The fact is, listeners of SuperTalk Outdoors come from all walks of life and from a wide range of and diverse political points of view. Men and women all huddled together here on Mondays at the SuperTalk Outdoors table, putting our differences aside and sharing our generational love for the outdoors in Mississippi. And we need to come together like this more often, because we all know, don't we, that when I say that Mississippi is the capital of the outdoors in America, I mean it. You know that I mean it. I've challenged anyone from any other state in our nation to debate me on that fact. They don't stand a chance, and you know it. I'll hit them hard with turkey hunting from Walnut, Mississippi. We'll do a little deer hunting along the Mississippi River for some monster bucks. We'll do some duck hunting in Tunica. And as my friend Emerald Lagasse likes to say, we'll kick it up a notch if we have to with some speckled trout and redfish fishing down in the Pascagoula River Marsh. Incidentally, that river, the Pascagoula River, runs along the Gulf Coastal Plain of southeastern Mississippi. It's the largest undammed waterway in the continental United States. What a treasure that is. We're so lucky to have it here. And if that's not enough, we could throw in some catfish noodling on a Delta Oxbow Lake, or go offshore and catch some amberjack and red snapper. You know, the diversity of outdoor recreation in this state is second to none. Anyway, I just want to thank you for joining us today at this celebration of the outdoors in Mississippi. I'm so honored to come to you every single week from the SuperTalk Mississippi Media Network from the Foundation Studio. The Foundation is working so hard every single day to make sure we stay the capital of the outdoors in Mississippi. Their ability, the Foundation for Wildlife Fisheries and Parks' ability to form coalitions in this state on important outdoors issues is really second to none in this state. In the second half of the show today, we're going to be visited by my dear friend, Houston Havens, who is the Waterfowl Program Coordinator for the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. He's a great friend of this show. We're going to get an update on duck season so far. And for the first half of the show, though, I want to welcome my dear friend, Lieutenant Governor of the state of Mississippi, Delbert Hosemann. We're not going to have a political conversation today. We're just going to talk about our love of the outdoors. How you doing, Delbert?
We're doing great. We had a good weekend and back to work, but had a great weekend in your outdoors.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. So, Kyle, the producer of the show, if you'll post up a picture that I shared with Kyle this morning, something you posted on social media in the last day or two. I guess it's from your duck hunt over the weekend. Kyle's grabbing it now, but you had a really good weekend this weekend, didn't you?
We did. We had a couple of duck hunts up in the Mississippi Delta. I've got a place up there that we go, and we really enjoyed it. It's nothing there. Saturday morning was a little. We had the front come through. It was a little misty and rainy, and in the woods, and all the leaves are falling, and just really special. And then we went way out in the Cypress Break with Mike Bull on Sunday morning, and they worked into the decoys and all the good stuff. Got colder and the wind was right. So we had it. Yeah, there we are on my right.
Yeah. Tell our radio listeners about this picture. What we're looking at.
Well, this is a blind in the Mississippi Delta at Beaver Dam, and Beaver Dam is Nash Buckingham's. If you remember a outdoor writer. That was his home place to go, and he wrote many a story, of course, about hunting quail and whatnot, but also about hunting on Beaver Dam. And it is a historical, great place to go duck hunting. And Mike and his son Lamar were nice enough to take me out in the blind this Sunday morning with a couple of my buddies, and we had a great hunt.
It's for people who don't go duck hunting, maybe they just enjoy deer hunting. I've described duck hunting as sort of the ultimate social sport. It really is the opportunity to get in a blind. I remember the last hunt last year, we had 7 guys in one blind. We cooked breakfast. We spent the whole morning there just laughing, and we had good waves of ducks coming through periodically. But, man, there's nothing like it, is there?
No, there isn't. And I think you learn a lot about people when you're out there and you have a chance to really have a conversation more than what I call elevator conversations. And it's not the same in deer hunting. I was lucky enough to bag a really good buck last weekend ago, but it's not the same. Sometimes we refer to deer hunting as deer waiting, and you're by yourself and you have to wait and hopefully get in the right food plot or whatever. But no, on duck hunting, it's a camaraderie thing. It's a give back and forth, and of course, who missed that shot and all that kind of stuff. So it's fun.
You gotta have thick skin, don't you?
Oh yeah, you better not miss. I'll tell you what, they'll get all over you.
I love it. For deer hunting, and the thing about let's just say life in a hunting camp where you may do some deer hunting or may do some duck hunting. It's the camaraderie that happens, the opportunity to sit around the table together and, bless the food and thank God that everyone's safe, remind everyone to stay safe, and just enjoy being with family and friends. That's what this time of year is all about, isn't it?
It is. Coming into Christmas, it's so funny how these things, you put into certain parts. You got the football season, you got deer season starts, and you got duck season starts, and you have Christmas, and then Easter, and it just all seems to fall in line. And duck season and deer season are the major part of that. We here in Mississippi are blessed to have 3 million people in an area that's 200 miles wide and 400 miles long. So we've got a lot of area that we can go. Been real positive, particularly when I was Secretary of State, about adding public property. We added the 17,000 acres that's in Warren County. Cat Island that you discussed earlier was a purchase we made when I was Secretary of State. Mouth of the Pearl River was another 3,000 acres that we own now, that you and the people in Mississippi own. And that access to public hunting like that, where people can go and take their children and have those experiences like we're talking about, I think it's really part of the fabric and the culture of our state. And I'm real glad it is, actually.
It is what makes this place special. And as I discuss on the show all the time, I find people on the show, I would say 90% of them got the love of the outdoors from their mothers and fathers and grandmothers and grandfathers and other family members, but some didn't. And some didn't get introduced to it until they were older in life. But once they got introduced to it, now they're going to be passing it down to their kids and their kids' kids and enjoying it in that way. But when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about how I opened this show, about how Mississippi is the capital of the outdoors in America, and how that is a worthy claim as we continue our conversation with Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann. And just continue a discussion about our love of the outdoors. We'll see you when we get to the other side.
Leading the conversation on Mississippi's outdoors. It's Super Talk Outdoors with Ricky Matthews on Super Talk Mississippi.
Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors. A reminder that coming up in the second half of the show, we have Houston Havens, and we're going to talk about the duck season so far. It's been better than it has in past years. And we're now visiting with the Lieutenant Governor for the state of Mississippi. It was good to see. You know, I guess you have to have a lot of things work together for ducks to come into Mississippi. But first of all, I think the lack of water north and just a huge cold blast at the beginning of the season, it kind of set the stage, didn't it, Delbert, for having a better season this season?
It did. And we, like everybody else, so I watched Minnesota, and then you have to really watch Illinois because they'll stop the ducks up there in Missouri. And we would have some friends up there we would call and whatnot. But when it snowed up there and it's covered the ground by more than an inch or two, then I knew that we would have some movement this way. Real pleased with that. It's kicked off the season, gives everybody a little hope to get started. And I'm thinking we should have a good season. We need about one more really cold, snowy part just north of Cairo area, Missouri area, and we'll do well, I think.
Yeah, I got a really good video opening day, let's see, from Alex Littlejohn from the Nature Conservancy and from Robert Schwartz, an attorney who practices with my son Jordan. And man, those videos were just loaded with ducks. And you know, what's interesting is for me being from South Mississippi, I can go on a great duck hunt and see maybe 3 or 4 groups come through and I'd be fine. But for you guys who do a lot of duck hunting, that's not ducks. Ducks is thousands of ducks coming in. Yeah. But you know, when you see what, for example, that video that Robert Schwartz sent me with these just I don't know how many hundreds of ducks coming in. Man, that's good to see. You know, we don't see it enough in Mississippi, and there's a lot of reasons why that is. But hopefully this year will be different.
Yeah, most of the time when we see it at our place, it's February 1st.
You know, I actually
right after the season.
Listen, I went to look at some new land that we are leasing now in Chula, on Chula Lake.
Yeah. And
I went to look about the second week in February a few years ago, and there was some sheet water out on this ag land that the Dunn's farm, and man, it was just literally loaded with mallards. But unfortunately, what that meant is it didn't get cold enough north of us to push them down, and they just arrived. They're here, but they just arrived late. Hopefully this year, as you said, it's going to get warm for a few days. Hopefully we get some cold weather soon and things kind of change. Hey, listen, you saw how I started the show today, just really celebrating all the incredible opportunities we have here in this great state to hunt and enjoy the outdoors, whether you love fishing or hunting. We'll talk about parks here in just a second, but if you just go do nature trails in Mississippi, there are thousands of miles of nature trails in the state, and the work that we're going to do to improve parks in the state is going to be unprecedented. But just if you think about hunting and fishing opportunities, public hunting and fishing opportunities, our forefathers, and then you and other leaders continue to stay focused on increasing the number of acres that is available to us. We get it, don't we?
Yeah, I think it's important to me, of course, as Governor Bryant was in when we were doing that, it's important, I think, for us to have public areas close to people. So throughout the state, and you were going through the whole laundry list from Pascagoula to Corinth, we have places you can go. And then the second part you also just brought up is the fact that we want to get our state parks. Our state parks were not in good shape, Ricky. I mean, they were not habitable by people that we would want to have them. And I think we really missed the COVID time when all these people were traveling to go to the outdoors. Ours were not very well done. So this past year, the legislature, House and the Senate, and the governor signed it, passed $38 million to fix up our parks. And I got the first reports back on design of cabins. We've redesigned the cabins much more up to date with what people expect when you go out. I think they'll be very pleased. They're building the first 2 or 3 of those at Roosevelt, which is between here and between Jackson Meridian. The cost, of course, are inflated, so we're having to struggle with that just like everybody else does. But I'm really hopeful that we'll go through each and every part, redo all of their electrical systems, which were also very outdated. We'll redo our cabins, which are very good, and we'll have a place where Mississippians can go for the weekend that's only like 30 or 40 miles away from where you are today. And that process is ongoing. Real pleased. Lynn Posey's been working hard on it over there. We have a number of people working hard on getting our state parks up to speed. I think that's the other component. We got the raw land. Now we need to have the infrastructure that goes with it.
It is. It's exciting to see, man, when you add it all together, what we're saying is whether you like to hunt or fish or just walk a nature trail, Mississippi wants to be second to none in the nation. You know, when you go back and look at some of what was being taught by people like Aldo Leopold and others, you know, Mississippi really embraced sort of a North American wildlife conservation approach, and it really has paid off, hasn't it?
It has. The economy, the economics of this is very strong for Mississippi. And it's the fishing part, as you've discussed, not only the coast, but also in our mini lakes here. Then you've got dove season where people get started, the purchasing of clothing like you've got on right now, Mossy Oak, all these others that have generated whole business models out of West Point, Mississippi. So you see an economic part of this. So it's a big cultural part, but anybody that's knows about fishing or the boats down there or knows about guiding up here or deer hunting, they all know what the economics of that are, and it's very important to Mississippi. A lot of these people, they have harvested their crops now, Ricky, like you run into, and so now between now and when they start back again in February, they can go use their land for hunting, and they either lease it or guide for it. And it's a big economic benefit. Some years they make more off duck hunting than they do off the crops. So that whole thing works together well.
You mentioned the farmers. The beauty of Mississippi is that, first of all, we got a lot of land that's owned by farmers. And I would say the vast majority of them are engaged, just as you say, that when they get done harvesting and they get done with sort of their end of the season chores, then they really shift their attention. And they're focused on habitat creation and all the things that they do. I have a really special relationship with the Dunn family in the Mississippi Delta, and at least 3 separate farms from them. And then more recently, a couple of my friends have also purchased some land adjacent to some of the land that we're leasing from them. But I see, you know, without farmers and what they do to help us, I mean, we'd be kind of toast if you think about the amount of land that they have management over. We're lucky that we've got that great relationship between outdoorsmen and hunters, and farmers, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. And I think part of that is this stewardship fund that we started last year. I know you were very supportive of that, been supportive for years of that. And we put $10 million to start last year, and we'll do that or more this year again into the stewardship fund. Just checking in, they're getting very close. In fact, today, I think they may go with their website and their application for these benefits with matching from farmers and how all the processes will go. And we're real hopeful. There were a number of nonprofits that told us that if we put up $10 million, they'd double it. So I'm hopeful that our nonprofits will have large matches. And I think you'll start seeing breaks out now with actually allocating those funds out into the public or the farmers or whomever, nonprofit or whatever it is that they're working on. That's a real key thing, I think, this first group of $10 million and how they spend it and whether we can get matching and that kind of thing. Real important. I think the website will be important. I hope that it'll be up before the end of the year. I think the applications will be up very shortly where farmers can start and other people can, put an application for the funds. So that will be a kickoff here. And I think that's a critical start. I'm hopeful that this first 10 million or that much and more will end up being multiplied by these matches, and we'll have a really strong economic benefit out of our outdoor stewardship fund.
Well, Delbert, we've talked about it a lot here on the show, even recently, because I've followed it closely. In fact, I've watched the YouTube videos from the meetings. First of all, I've referred to the appointees that you and the governor made as really the dream team. These are very successful people that aren't caught up in the prestige of being on this committee. They're really caught up in doing the right thing.
Right.
The questions they're asking, the thoughts around making their selections of projects based on federal matching and within the context of what will develop, I believe, is some vision for Mississippi and how this money can be best spent. I'm really thrilled about their work so far. I mean, they hit the ground running and they haven't let up, haven't they?
They have, and they've been meeting weekly, and I think all of those are going to generate out into the application process shortly. As you know, they're meeting again today, and the hiring and the Facebook and website, all the things that you'll need to be able to do. Yeah, they really are. Nobody on there is there to make money. They all have a great love for Mississippi and a great love for the outdoors, and that's exactly what you want out of the private citizens coming and doing a really smart thing with some of our tax dollars. And I'm real pleased, anxious to see who gets the first awards, all of that kind of thing, and we'll build off of that as we go forward. And I know, at least on the Senate side, I can't always speak for the House, but on the Senate side, we intend to support them monetarily as they go forward.
Well, we're out of time, but one more point on the Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund. The great thing about hitting the ground running the way that we're doing that is that we can use this as sort of out of the gate demonstration of what is possible so that people can get behind it and we can continue to grow the fund and continue to search for the kind of matching dollars to turn $10 or $20 million into 50 or more $million for the good of outdoor recreation in this state. Right. But it's been a pleasure, Delbert, to spend some time with you, my friend.
Well, good luck. Good luck hunting on your time and everything, and I hope it'll go well. I think Mississippi is going to have a very good season. We got a lot of deer, we got a lot of ducks, we got a lot of fish, we got a lot of outdoors, so y'all enjoy your time. Merry Christmas, everybody.
You bet. We'll see you after this break.
On Super Talk, Mississippi.
Welcome back to Super Talk Outdoors as we listen to my friend Steve Azar, One Mississippi, the theme song for this incredible celebration at Super Talk Outdoors. I'm so privileged to have that as the theme song and to have Steve Azar, such a great friend. And that song is also the new state song for the state of Mississippi. Man, that's awesome. Hey, listen, I really enjoyed the conversation with Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann. It takes a village in this state to make it tick. And you can see his excitement about the Outdoor Stewardship Trust Fund and the team that's focused on that now, the work that the legislature did this last session to dedicate money to improve state parks across the state. We're moving in the right direction, but that's just to improve what we have now. The truth is, what we have now is the capital of the outdoors in this great nation, and I'm pleased to bring to you sort of a celebration of that every single week. So now let's move on to my friend Houston Havens, who's the Waterfowl Program Coordinator for the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks, and a good friend of this show. How you doing, Houston?
Doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing fantastic. Hey, listen, we were chatting a little bit off the air there a second ago about the reports are spotty, but clearly through this moment in time, if you go back to the beginning of the season and compare it to the last several seasons, we're off to a good start, aren't we?
We are off to a good start. Our information from our public lands and then just the general calls like been talking to some private landowners, hearing a few reports here and there, and people seem to be pretty happy so far. A long way to go with this weather. We're certainly going to need more of what we had the week before Thanksgiving, but can't complain with our success so far in the season.
But before the season started, you and I chatted about this, and we wondered, and you speculated that it would probably work for us, that having a lot of drought north of us, a lot of drought, meant that there's not going to be nearly as much water as there normally is. And you said if we got a cold snap, the combination of a cold snap and the lack of water north is going to push some birds down. And that's exactly what happened, isn't it?
It is, we saw really good success the first weekend, and like you and I talked about, even here, having a low water year to start off the season for areas that can, whether it's pump groundwater or areas that just have the type of wetland habitat that's always going to have some reliable water. Things usually work out pretty well in a year like this to kick the year off with duck hunting success.
Well, what I've mentioned a couple of videos that have been sent to me. Several videos have been sent to me, but one from Alex Littlejohn from the Nature Conservancy, another from my friend Robert Schwartz, who's a lawyer, practices with my son Jordan. The videos they sent, where you could just change the date to say 1975, because it was just so many ducks coming in. And that's what it means to have ducks. I mean, that when you talk about having ducks, that's what you're talking about, isn't it?
It is. We've heard some really good reports of, it's one thing to go out and for things to work right and, have 6 ducks that come into the decoys if you're hunting by yourself. That's still a great hunt. But, a lot of people want to see those really big concentrations of birds. Just seeing a lot of ducks typically is pretty highly correlated with hunting success. But just, seeing a lot of birds is a really big deal to duck hunters. And we have had some of those reports so far. Sure.
So let's talk about the migration for a second. Clearly, at the beginning of the season, like we said, the lack of water and some really extreme cold temperatures in the middle of the United States pushes like big movement of ducks down. But then it kind of warms up a little bit. So what happens to the migration? Does it stall and the ducks that are here continue to fly south, or how does that work?
A little bit of all of that. It certainly can stall, and that's kind of what we would expect to see going into this, early and mid part of December. And it's not uncommon. Mississippi duck hunters and duck hunters in the South in general will talk about the December lull. Sometimes where hunting is pretty good to start off, and then things can get kind of tough if we don't get weather to continually bring more birds south. So, just looking at the forecast for what we've got, kind of warm and rainy, that can kind of work against us here in Mississippi, just because we certainly need more wetland habitat to kind of quote unquote set the table for more birds as they come later on in the winter time. But if we're not getting consistent cold fronts from the north to continue to bring new birds, then we're basically adding more habitat. Ducks are really good at finding new water on the landscape, and so they're going to kind of quickly redistribute themselves, and it could make for some tough hunting if we don't continually get more birds to kind of equalize that more habitat aspect.
Yeah, it's interesting. I can only look at it from my perspective. The 3 farms that I lease, one is in Chula, one is between Greenwood and Black Hawk, and the other is in Mentor City. And I did a lot of deer hunting at Mentor City toward the end of last week, and what I observe, when you go into the fingers that go out into these ag land, beautiful, hardwood fingers, they're usually full of water. And as my son Jordan pointed out, that when you look at what we call the big woods, which is usually very full of water, when the big woods get filled up, then it starts to back up into the fingers, and then the fingers are full of water. But we had some rain recently, but the truth is we haven't had nearly enough rain. The water, I mean, you can think of what's happening just to sort of replenish the water table. And that dryness goes deep. I looked into the big woods, didn't see an ounce of water anywhere. Of course, the fingers are still dry. But at the place between Black Hawk and Greenwood, I think we got 3 or 4 inches there. And you can see a little bit more standing water. That's the way it is all across Mississippi. Certain areas have a little bit more water than other areas. And to get to where you really are in the duck game big time, we need a lot more rain, don't we?
That's right. I often talk about kind of the differences in kinds of rain we get early in the fall. I'm a deer hunter as well, and I'm looking for what I call a food plot rain, in early fall, which is, not a huge rain all at one time, just kind of a slow, kind of get things going, put some moisture in the ground. But it's getting to the time of year where we're looking for duck hole rains, which are those really hard, a lot of rain at one time, going to have a lot of runoff to run into those basins, because like you said, we've got a lot of way to go with filling those basins that are eventually going to back out into that really shallow water in ag fields and those fingers like you're talking about to make good duck habitat.
when I was publisher of the Sun Herald, we were owned by a company called Knight Ridder. And at the time, at one point, Knight Ridder's headquarters was down in Miami. And I never will forget this. We were about to leave for lunch, and one of the guys said, it's starting to rain. And another guy said, this is get wet rain. Which meant, some rain you can get into, some rain you can't take a step and you're already completely drenched. You need some get wet rain, don't you?
That's right. Yeah, we've got a lot of potential out there to catch some rainfall. Farmers are done with what they need to do in their fields, so hopefully they've got some pipes stopped up, ready to put a little bit of shallow water on the ag landscape in the Mississippi Delta in particular, but also those natural areas, creeks and rivers. If we could get some normal and maybe above normal rainfall this winter to get some of that natural flooding on the landscape, that'll be really good for ducks in Mississippi.
Hey, listen, I know this is not a deer conversation, but you're a deer hunter. Coming back to what I observed in Mentor City is that because there hasn't been a lot of rain, deer are in places they normally are not this time of year. Now, they might walk through the water to find a ridge somewhere, and that's true, and we see that all the time. But the concentration of deer in places we're not used to seeing them. Like, again, walking through this finger the other day, I'm seeing scrapes where normally there would be water, and so on. So it's been interesting to see in this one particular place where I hunted a couple of times. I saw a lot of deer where normally in that area we'd see some deer, don't get me wrong, but we wouldn't see nearly as many deer as we see because deer just concentrated in areas they don't normally have the opportunity to concentrate in. That's actually a good thing.
Yeah, it is. It's there's always a silver lining. For being somebody who hunts ducks and deer. I've seen the same thing on our place. I've got cameras out on places right now that some years I wouldn't be able to get in there. Or shouldn't have a camera there. I wouldn't have a camera for very long. But you're right. Those deer they know those areas. They're going to use those low areas and those thickets until they're flooded and not able to use them consistently.
Well, I tell you what it's meant is that the big boys have a lot more area to hide in.
That's right.
So we got a good one at the main camp. My son-in-law's father, Keith Williams, got a nice 8-point at the main camp on Saturday afternoon. But we haven't had that big opportunity yet at Mentor City, and I think part of the reason why is that. Again, they've got a lot of places to hide. They normally don't have a chance to hide. So we're still figuring it out. Although we got rut coming up, that should reveal some of the monsters that we've been looking for. At least we hope it is. But so you how much time do you spend duck hunting versus deer hunting these days?
It really just depends on what's going on. I enjoy running cameras on our property, and from year to year, if there's a certain deer, as you're probably well aware, they can kind of get in your head, and it kind of becomes a challenge to you. So I may spend a little more time in the deer woods if I'm seeing good things as far as that goes, and then duck hunting is just by opportunity. When the weather's good or when I've got some good information on an area to go. Or maybe a WMA that I'm drawing for and has good bird numbers, then we'll get after them then.
Listen, 2 years in a row talking about a deer that gets in your head. My son Jordan had 2 separate deer in his head, and last year neighbors killed one, and this year neighbors killed the other. It's heartbreaking. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Houston Havens.
Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back to SuperTalk Outdoors. I have my friend Houston Havens, who's the Waterfowl Program Coordinator for the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. Hey, for people who have not heard you and I talk before, Houston, talk about what it means to be the Program Coordinator for the Waterfowl Program.
Well, I tell people I think I got the best job in the agency. It's great to be able to wake up every day and think about something that even before going to college or having a job I was passionate about. So just looking forward to being able to work for the natural resources and for the hunters of Mississippi, because I am one. It's a very rewarding job. Get to do a lot of things, not just in waterfowl, working for the Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. Get to work with a lot of great people on a wide range of things. I don't have a Monday through Friday set schedule by any means. It's ever changing. Get to do a lot of different things in a lot of different areas across the state. So it always keeps me on my toes, but it's a great job. I wouldn't ask to do anything else if I could do it all over again.
Well, you and I and Delbert Hosemann got a chance to visit a little bit before this show started, and I referred to the work that you guys are doing for waterfowl on public lands as a true best practice. But you guys are passionate about that, aren't you?
We are. Most of the people who work in the department, of course, are hunters and fishermen ourselves, and we hunt a lot of public land, and so we care about those areas not only for the resource and for the hunters, but we actually go and participate ourselves on those areas. And so I think a lot of people don't realize that we are the users of the areas as well. So take a lot of pride in it. It's a lot of work, and you have to work with conditions a lot of times. Whether it's a backwater flood or a drought during the summer, a lot of those issues play into what the end result can be. But yeah, it's as evidenced by how many people are using public lands, especially in a dry start to the duck season. Those are really popular areas this year, and so we're proud to see the work that we've put into those areas being used.
A friend of mine sent me a video from Arkansas opening day for their duck season. And what it showed, it was someone was standing in the woods with, I don't know, 100 other people. And someone said, okay, go. And there was this rush running through the woods, man. I mean, look, that's dangerous rush running through the woods of all these people trying to get to these holes. Does that play out in Mississippi? And I happen to be aware you guys have really worked hard to try to limit that to some extent.
It does happen on, areas where access is not limited. It's kind of a first come, first serve type of situation. And I personally believe that's an important component to maintain, to just have, places where people can go when they have the opportunity to hunt. But again, in a year like this, when habitat is very limited on public and private lands, especially on private lands where people are waiting for rainfall to fill wetland areas, it does increase competition. We have some areas where we do limit the amount of hunting pressure on them with limited draw systems, things like that. And we have what's called standby opportunity, where people can show up for a chance to fill if somebody who was drawn doesn't show up for their hunt. And participation has been really high on those. People are lining up just for a chance to get in on those areas. So it's a high use, particularly in a year like this.
So some might be rushing to an open field somewhere where you guys have flooded timber, or a flooded field where sheet water is present. Some might be to a blind and a really serious hunting hole somewhere that you guys have created. But if you were to, do you know the actual number of places where people can hunt duck that are on public land? I mean, do you actually have a number in your head?
Not in my head. We definitely have that information. I'd have to look back and get to that. We have, I believe, 52 wildlife management areas across the state of Mississippi. Now, those are certainly not all intensively managed for waterfowl habitat. So our areas in the Mississippi Delta, for the most part, do have some good waterfowl hunting opportunities there. And we do have several areas, in South Mississippi and through the hills where waterfowl hunting is what I would call opportunistic, when there's sufficient rainfall to fill areas. But it's National Wildlife Refuges, of course, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Army Corps of Engineers has a lot of public land, especially on the flood control reservoirs and surrounding areas. So Mississippi has a lot of public land. It's just we have a strong hunting culture as well, and so again, in times like this, when there's not abundant rainfall, abundant wetland habitat, it can be a fairly concentrating effect on the number of people who are out there duck hunting.
And you guys have got a reputation, man. Let's face it, the reputation you have is you get it done, and your numbers are good, so people really want to gravitate toward that, don't they?
They do. They're definitely taking advantage. There are no. We get calls sometimes for people, wanting, I guess maybe secret spots or things like that, and I laugh and tell them that there's basically no such thing anymore.
Well, that's good. Hey, this has been Houston Havens. He's the Waterfowl Program Coordinator for the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. It's been a great show today. I really appreciate you joining us. And again, thanks for the notes. I appreciate getting the feedback. Continue to enjoy the great outdoors in the capital of the outdoors in America, Mississippi. And listen, always, for God's sake, please stay safe. Put safety first. Always put safety first. Have a great week, and we'll see you next Monday. God bless you.